My name is Sarah. I live in a small town near Dover, in the south of England. I'm 33 years old. I work in a small bookstore in the town center. The shop is quiet and the work is simple, but I like it. I love books. Their stories, their covers, and the way they make people think. I live with my husband, Mark. He is 40. We've been married for 5 years. Mark is a baker. He's calm and gentle, or at least that's how I saw him when we first met. He bakes bread and cakes for a small cafe. The customers like him. He makes delicious treats and always brings home new recipes to try. We don't have children. I wanted them, I hope, but time passed and it didn't happen. I didn't talk about it much. Mark once said, maybe it's just not meant to be. I said nothing after that. I tried to stay busy. I work 4 days a week. On my days off, I clean the house, walk by the river, and sometimes I visit my friend Lisa. Life is quiet, but quiet isn't always peaceful. Sometimes quiet feels lonely. It didn't start with a big moment. It started with little things. Mark would come home from work, kiss my cheek, and go straight to his kitchen. He said he had orders to prepare. Sometimes I made tea and sat beside him, but he didn't say much, just small words, just short answers. One evening, I found him sitting on the sofa, staring at an old photo in his hand. I'd never seen it before. It was a picture of Mark and a woman. They looked young, maybe 20. They were standing by a lake, holding hands. She had short, dark hair and wore a blue scarf. She was laughing at him. He was smiling at her. I asked, "Who is that?" He looked up surprised. Then he said, "Oh, that's Nina. She was someone I dated a long time ago." I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there. He put the photo in a drawer and changed the subject. But something inside me went quiet, a stillness I hadn't felt before. After that night, I began to notice more. On Sunday mornings, Mark would take long walks by himself. He said it helped him never think. Did that before. One day I followed him, not to spy, just to understand. He walked through the town square, past the cafe, and stopped near the old bridge. He stood there for a long time, just looking. Later I asked, "Why do you walk there?" He shrugged. "No reason. Just like the view." But he wasn't looking at the view. He was looking at something else. A week later, I found a card in the pocket of Mark's coat. There was writing inside. It said, "Hope you're doing well. I still think about the old days. Nina." I stood in the kitchen holding that card for 10 minutes. My hands felt cold, and I heard Mark coming through the front door. Quickly, I put the card back where I found it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the wind outside. Mark was sleeping beside me, but I felt alone. I closed my eyes and remembered the way he used to hold my hand when we walked by the river. I remembered how he laughed at my silly jokes. I remembered how he looked at me on our wedding day. That man felt far away now. I wanted to talk to him, but I didn't know how to start. I didn't want to sound angry. I didn't want to cry. I just wanted the truth, even if it hurt. One evening after dinner, I sat with him in the living room. The TV was off. The house was quiet. "Mark," I said, "do you still think about her?" He looked confused. "Who?" "Nina," I said. He looked away. "Sometimes. We were together for years. It's normal, isn't it?" "Do you still love her?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He rubbed his face with his hands. Then he said, "No, it's just memories. That's all." But the way he said it, it didn't feel true. His voice was soft, but his eyes didn't meet mine. That night I cried in the shower. I didn't want him to hear. I didn't want him to feel guilty. I didn't even know if he still loved me. I just knew something was missing. A few days later, I was walking home from work. I passed the small bakery near the bus stop. I looked through the window and saw Mark sitting at a table. Across from him was a woman with short, dark hair and a blue scarf. My heart stopped. It was her. I didn't go inside. I stood behind a big tree and watched from a distance. They were talking. He was smiling. She was touching her coffee cup slowly, like she wasn't in a rush. They looked comfortable, like nothing had changed. I walked away before he saw me. That evening I waited for him to say something, anything, but he didn't. He said he stayed late at the bakery for a meeting. I said nothing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask, "Why are you lying? Why are you seeing her?" But I didn't. I just nodded and said okay. I went to bed early. Mark stayed downstairs. I stared at the ceiling again, wondering when my home had become so silent. The next morning, he brought me tea in bed like he used to. He said, "You looked tired last night." I just smiled and said, "Yes, a little." He kissed my forehead and left for work. I held the tea in my hands and looked out the window. The sky was gray. The trees didn't move. Everything looked still. Everything felt still. But inside me, something had started to break. After that day, nothing outside changed. The house still smelled of tea and clean laundry. The street still echoed with the sound of kids playing in the morning and birds in the afternoon. But inside me, everything was different. It felt like someone had turned off the light. And now I was walking in the dark, trying not to trip. Mark didn't know I'd seen him with Nina. He didn't know I'd watched him smile at her like he hadn't smiled at me in years. I told myself maybe it was just one meeting. Maybe it meant nothing. But my heart didn't believe that. Something deep inside told me the truth. Even if he wasn't doing anything wrong, his heart was no longer here. It was with her. I started to notice more things. When I spoke, he didn't listen the same way. His eyes moved to his tablet or the television. He still asked me if I needed anything. He still brought home groceries. He still said goodnight before bed. But it all felt like a habit, not love, like he was just doing what he was supposed to do. One evening, I came home early from the bookstore. I wasn't feeling well. I heard Mark on the phone in the kitchen. His voice was soft. He said it was really nice seeing you again. I still think about that summer by the lake. Your blue scarf. I stood frozen. Then I quietly slipped outside. In the garden, I felt like a dried flower. I knew the truth now. I didn't tell Mark what I heard. That weekend, my friend Rose visited. She saw that I was sad. I told her everything. The photo, the card, the walk, the bakery, the phone call. She held my hand and said, "You don't deserve to feel invisible." That night I lay awake next to Mark, wondering what happened to us. The next morning he made toast and tea, but it felt like goodbye. I felt like a stranger in my own home. That evening I sat with Mark on the couch. "Are you happy with me?" I asked. He seemed surprised. "I don't feel like I make you happy anymore," I said. He spoke about being tired and lost. "That's not what I asked," I replied. He looked at me with a sadness I hadn't seen in a long time. A sadness not for us, but for himself. I asked, "Do you still love Nina?" He stayed silent. And his silence was louder than any words. I walked into the kitchen, not wanting to cry. Mark followed. "I'm sorry," he said, "for not letting go." I just nodded. In the next few days, I felt like I was walking through a dream. My home felt cold. One evening, I started packing a small bag. Mark saw me. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm going to stay with Rose for a while," I said. "I need time to feel like myself again." He didn't stop me. I left the next morning. On the train, I felt empty, but deep inside, I knew something. I was choosing myself. Rose's house was small and warm. Her little dog, Lucky, followed me everywhere. It felt safe. For days, I sat by the window. Rose gave me space. One evening, I finally said, "I felt invisible." She put her hand on mine and said, "You were never invisible." He just stopped looking. Her words stayed with me. I thought about my marriage, about how Mark used to bring me fresh pastries. But those happy times felt far away. I thought about Nina, not with anger, but with sadness. Her place in Mark's heart stayed open, and there was no space left for me. I walked by the river near Rose's house, needing time to breathe without Mark's shadow. After 1 week, he sent a message. "Hope you are okay. Let me know if you need anything." I stared at it but didn't reply. I didn't want more silence. Days turned into weeks. I felt stronger. I helped Rose in her garden, read books, and even baked bread. One afternoon in the park, I met an older woman named Emily. She was feeding birds. She looked at me and said, "You look like someone with too many thoughts." I smiled. "Maybe I am," I said. Emily nodded. "I once left a man after 30 years. People said I was brave, but I was just tired of feeling like furniture." Her words touched me. I didn't want to be furniture. I wanted to be loved fully, to be chosen with all his heart. That evening I wrote in a notebook about Mark, how he used to hold my hand, the photo, the cafe, the car, the quiet dinners. I wrote until my hand hurt. Then I felt lighter. Mark called the next day, but I didn't answer. He didn't leave a message. Maybe he finally understood I wasn't coming back. A month later, I went back to our house to get my things. Mark wasn't there. The house looked the same, but it felt empty. The love I once felt there was gone. I packed slowly, taking only what still felt like mine. Before I left, I whispered goodbye to the life I had hoped for and to the woman I'd been. I closed the door and didn't look back. Back at Rose's house, she made tea and hugged me. That night I slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. I didn't stare at the ceiling. I just rested. Over time, things changed. I found a small flat near the bookstore. It wasn't big, but it had a window facing the sunrise. I went back to work and smiled more. I started writing again, not about sadness, but about growing. Sometimes I walked past the bakery where Mark used to work. Sometimes I saw him from far away. We never waved, and that was okay. One morning, I stood outside my flat, holding tea. The sun was warm, and the air was quiet. I thought about the past and about love. I realized that sometimes the bravest thing is to walk away. Not because you want to, but because staying means losing yourself. I left, not with anger, but with honesty. I needed to be somewhere I felt seen, somewhere I felt truly loved. My heart was no longer at home. It was time to find a new one.